Come on in, bestie. Welcome to StoryPod, where we do the doing of story development together. Brought to you by Creative BFF. Hello. Thank you for joining me on the StoryPod podcast. My name is Ashley. You are bestie. And I just want to have a chat. I have more thoughts about AI in creative spaces in general. And I have a couple of different angles that I want to approach it from, which is, well, the two angles that matter to me, which is art and writing, because they're kind of both happening a little bit right now. So thank you so much for joining me before I get started and just kind of chat and give my thoughts. They're not like super connected and organized, but I just started thinking about this as I was moving through my day. But before I start talking about that, if you have any questions, any story questions that you would like me to answer, please feel free to email me at ash@creativebff.com, or you can go to my website, creativebff.com, and you can go to the contact section and shoot me a little message. I would love to hear from you, or you can put comments, wherever you're listening to this, and hopefully I will see them. I'm new to this game, so, give me a little grace. So, talking about AI, part 2. It has been several months since my first AI discussion. And when I recorded that first, podcast about AI, I had literally only been playing with it, using it, having it in my creative space for maybe like a week or two, maybe. Or it might have been, I might have recorded the podcast a little bit after I had been using it for a moment, but I do feel like, if I remember correctly, it was like a week or two maybe. And I was really dealing with some conflicted feelings about it. Now, at this point, several months later, I have been using it more regularly for anything from just in my job, just to kind of do quick little things so that I don't have to do it, that are writing based, asking it questions, in general. And then also using it to create the artwork for these podcasts, which is one of the angles that I want to talk about. And then most prominently, at least in the creative space, as a tool for this kind of large scale project that I'm working on with one of my friends / creative partners. And just to kind of refresh, I mentioned it in that podcast, but a friend of mine reached out, re-engaged on a particular project that I had been helping him with the previous year, or maybe like prior 2 years, where I was mainly doing art and not the story. He had some other guys who were involved in the story and other things. But he had been, at this point, using AI very heavily to kind of help him redirect the story and get new characters and do all that kind of stuff. So I basically came in and sort of forced order on what the AI had been coming up with. And so now, at this point, I don't even know, when was this? Was this back in April of 2023? Right now it's January of 2020, not 2023, but like 2024. And right now it's January of 2025. So, somewhere in the first 2 quarters, I started working with him again. So it's been months that we've been working on this. And, we have a couple of chapters written with artwork, and we're working on the 3rd one before we branch off into different character story arcs. And in that time, this world has really grown, and I've put a lot of myself into it, probably more than what I was expecting to do. And I have been really and I'm hesitant to say it this way. I don't want to overplay my role in this. I don't want to sound arrogant or prideful or anything like that, but perhaps just cognizant of my role in this. And I think that my friend would be like, yeah, she's important. She's doing a lot of stuff, because I've really been doing a lot for this story, adding a lot. I've really been working out a lot of different details, adding so much to the logic of the world, the characters. Obviously, I'm plotting the stories and things like that. And I have, we've been talking about, we've really expanded this story. I've really expanded this story, and obviously not just because I'm partnering with my friend, and this is his story idea. So even though he sees me as very much a creator, very much an equal partner on this, I still, sorry if you hear anything happening outside. I have my windows open because I need this natural light, girl, and I need I need to feel the trees outside, okay? But I still very much see this as his baby, so I do not want to ever overstep the bounds of, I don't want to overstep, and force anything on him that he doesn't like for the story in the world. So we work together on kind of generally ideas. We will have meetings, and I'll be like, okay, what do you think about this? And I'll just be spitballing and throwing a bunch of ideas and things like that. And just coming up with a lot. And the world and the universe that we've been creating has expanded to an almost overwhelming, for myself, overwhelming degree. And it's still expanding, okay? And that's exciting, because I would love in the future, hopefully we'll be able to get some funding. Hopefully we'll be able to make it like an animated thing, or, even just like an actual comic drawn out, like a sequential graphic novel art type of thing. I hope that we would be able to involve other writers at some point to kind of do little offshoot stories within the world, because the things that I and we have been coming up with are like, this could be its own little book series, this could be its own little comic, this could be its own little movie type of thing. And it's very exciting and it's fun. And this is what I love about story development and storytelling, is seeing this world develop and seeing the characters develop and seeing all the little pieces that weren't connected somehow connect. That's like, I just love that so much. And so now we're getting to the point, we're on the third chapter, which in the way that we're organizing the story is the final chapter of introducing the world, the characters, and the story arcs that we're going to now follow. The way we're kind of thinking about it is like, a Marvel or a DC, where they have characters that have their own storylines within the same world, and at times they come together, Avengers and all this kind of stuff, but each of the Avengers kind of has their own stories that they have running. So it's kind of like that type of thing within this world. But now we're getting to the point where, okay, now we're going to start re-engaging with ChatGPT to start writing the third chapter. And I feel a little bit some kind of way, I'm going to be honest, about putting my great ideas, because I do not use GPT to generate ideas. That's the fun part for me. That's the most fun part for me. I don't use it to generate ideas. And previously, in between the first podcast about how I felt about AI and this podcast, somewhere in there, I had started to be like, okay, I'm okay with using ChatGPT to do this. And here's how I had rationalized it to myself. Because even though I am an equal partner with my friend on this story, because of the amount of work that I'm putting in and how much of myself and my ideas are being put into this story, I still also, on the other hand, kind of see him as a client of Creative BFF. And I am technically doing a service for him. I'm doing a more in-depth version of one of the services that I offer, which is basically like seed. It's like a combination of two services I'm doing. It's seed to forest, which is basically the idea of taking, like, for example, if you came to me and you had just a small inspiration and I've done this with another client of mine, or just like, I have a character that I want to do this, but I have nothing else for this world. So we're taking that and we're making a story around that seed. So seed to forest. And then also story expansion, which is taking a story that you have and then identifying things that you've already set up that can logically help us to expand. If you, for example, wanted to take a novel or a short story that you have and expand it into a trilogy or into, an animated series or into a video game, whatever, a multi-book graphic novel series or whatever the case may be, or just even taking what you've set up in your first novel or in your short comic or in your short story or your single episode and making a world around it that you can tell other stories in. And then also every other service that I offer is part of what I'm doing: character development, plotting, plot hole hunter, all the little things. You can go on my website and you can see all the different services that I offer as a story coach, but I'm doing all of them here, right? And also kind of writing it. But the writing portion is being, broad stroked by ChatGPT. And on the one hand, I feel some kind of way about it because I'm like, I don't want to give my good ideas to Chat. Obviously, I'm not giving the ideas to Chat, but putting these great ideas into the hands of an AI to kind of write some stuff out. And I will say this, the way that I use AI, the way that I use any program really is to bend it to my will. Is to bend it to my will, to make it do what I want it to do. So, and always, if possible, to make it not read as ChatGPT AI writing off the bat. Now, I'm going to say this. The first episode, the first chapter of it may read very much, AI writing. And part of it is because I was just kind of getting used to it. The other part of it is I wasn't as deeply connected to the development of this world as I am now. I, at that time, was more so looking like, okay, well, let me just take what he has, let me organize it, let me actually make it make sense in a story structure, and I'll outline these chapters, and then, he can just throw it into ChatGPT if he wants to write the chapters. And I wasn't as focused on things like the writing style and all that kind of stuff. The second chapter, I'm getting deeper into the world, and it's definitely a better chapter than the first one. And I feel some kind of way about that. But listen, at the end of the day, he makes the executive decisions in my mind. And he was very happy with the first chapter. And he's very happy with the second chapter. He's even more excited about this third chapter and where we're going. Because now I'm fully 100% in, and I'm really giving ideas to this, right? I'm really involved in the creation of this world. So now that I have a better grasp on how I would use it, which is come in here, Chat, and just kind of brute force, just kind of fill out these chapters. And then what I do is we go, paragraph by paragraph, and we'll change words around, and I'll say, well, let's say it like this. Let's do this. And very often, if I get into a writing mode where I kind of write a little blurb, sometimes Chat will just copy and paste that in there and just like clean up the sentences a little bit and make sure the punctuation is good. You know what I'm saying? Which makes me feel good. I think I mentioned this in the first AI podcast episode. But the reason I've started feeling like this now, in addition to the fact that I'm very much involved in the development of this world, I have put a lot of ideas into it. And I would hate for anyone to think that an AI came up with these ideas, because a human came up with it. and the AI is just kind of like the writing partner to kind of get the words on the paper in a format that then I can go in and twist words around and kind of wordsmith them a little bit. But then I started thinking about it again because recently on my Instagram, which you can see, it's your_creative BFF. It's in the highlights. I'm still trying to figure out how to do social media. So we're trying to figure it out. Okay. But one of the things that I did was I saw a little inspirational image basically, and it made me want to write a very short little blurb. And I did it on an Instagram story, just a few panels of a short little blurb. And it felt good to do, number one, to like put some words together on a page and to come up with something that felt to me, now you know, everybody has their own taste, but to me, it felt like, wow, that was satisfying to do, but also it feels high key, low key, interesting and well written for this little blurb. I like the way it's written and I enjoyed doing it. And then I went back and I started reading some of the little snippets of writing that I would do. And I was like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I was like, dang girl, you're kind of good. You kind of like wordsmith out here. Okay. And I hadn't written anything. In the past few years, I have really put my focus into being a story coach and doing story development and just coming up with the plot ideas. And the lazy side of me, and we all have one, okay? The lazy side of me was happy to do that and to come alongside because it's quicker and easier to come up with ideas and then hand it over to somebody else. Okay, now you can write those ideas. I just helped you come up with them, and now the ball is in your court for you to put the words together in a way, because the writing side of it is connected to, but like a totally different art, a totally different aspect of writing. It's like, how are you going to put the words on the page in a way that is engaging and beautiful and, feels like looking at a beautiful painting. The words in your brain, the words hit your brain like looking at a beautiful painting, right? That's always my goal. And that's a harder part. It's a different set of gears. A little bit. They're connected, but it's a different set of gears that need to turn for that side of it. And so it was a little bit nice to be like, okay, well, I'm just doing the story part, but I was reminded recently as I did these little exercises, like, oh, that actually felt really good to write these words in this way. But I'm going to be honest, the idea of me, so this is where the conflict is now coming in, where it's like part of me feels like I feel like my ideas are better than what our ideas are better than what ChatGPT can produce in terms of the quality of writing, which actually I'm not mad at that, because I don't necessarily want ChatGPT to have a clear stylistic voice. I want it to kind of stay in that business voice. You know what I'm saying? It's great for writing business emails. I love it. For writing up the minutes and doing an outline for some kind of PowerPoint. Okay, stay right there. But I do feel like as a writer, each writer has a voice. And on a side note, I apologize if this is a little bit rambly, but on a side note, you know what? Wait, I'll save this part. Hopefully I'll remember. I'll save the voice and the style aspect for the art section. But as of right now, happily, I can say that ChatGPT cannot mimic for long passages my writing style, or I think anybody's writing style, really, because it takes your brain, you as a person, and what you filter it through creates the style of the writing, right? ChatGPT can put words and use, syntax and language in a way that is very book smart and can sound great for an essay, but that's not what we're trying to read when we're reading a book, right? When we're reading a comic. So you have to kind of really take it by the hand and take it moment by moment. So part of me is relieved that the weight is not on me to actually, now I need to sit down and wordsmith these chapters, because what I know is it would take a long time for me to now come in and write these chapters in a way that is beautiful and all this kind of stuff. Because I will admittedly say, in another podcast that I recorded, I mentioned how doing, if you look at my catalog of podcasts, there's a lot of answering story questions and coming up with, doing Storymatic, coming up with ideas from little seeds and all of that. That's a muscle that I have really trained a lot. And so it's something that I can do pretty quick now, like gesture drawing. You train at it and then eventually you're quick and you can get the general sketch down pretty fast. But I would say that actually writing words on a page that are beautiful is not a muscle that I have exercised as much. So that's why there's not as much muscle memory in doing that as there is in coming up with ideas. So it takes me longer, I feel, to write a page of words unless it's flowing. Like I've had obviously, don't we all as writers have moments where it just flows and it's like, yes, this is beautiful. Anyway, I was getting ready to mention something else, but I decided not to. But so that's why, on the one hand, I am happy that he wants to use ChatGPT and not have me just write it, because ChatGPT does make the process a lot quicker of getting words on a page that now I can just come in and edit and tweak, and make it sound better. So that's where that conflict is coming in terms of using it as a creative writing tool. I have not fully settled, especially as I become more locked in and more deeply involved in developing the world and the characters and the plot and just really the universe of this story. It's kind of like, I don't really want to put it in the hands of ChatGPT because I feel like that cheapens it. I don't want anybody to look at this and turn their noses up and turn their noses, just turn away like, I'm not interested because it was written by AI. I don't want it to sound like it's written by AI. And also, it's just a tool, whatever. I can't remember what I was going to say. I don't know what I was going to say right there. It's just a tool. So now kind of shifting a little bit into using AI for art. Now, art is another thing that I have done quite a bit of in my life. I actually went to school. If you didn't know, I went to college, university. I have a degree in animation and studio arts, a bachelor's degree. And drawing was actually the first creative passion that I really pursued with fervor. And where I am with that, and this might be something for a different vulnerable episode about how I feel about art now. Art was such a love of mine as I was growing up, even into my 20s. And I think that I destroyed it for myself. This is a little bit of an aside, but it is an explanation as to why I have been using AI to create art for these podcasts and things like that, as opposed to drawing myself, which I could very well do. But I think that I destroyed it for myself. And perhaps 2025 will be a year that I try to get the love of art back, but I tried to make it a career. I thought that if I was able to make money doing this thing that I love and that I'm good at, not trying to toot my own horn. You can go look at my Instagram. I'm not the best artist ever. One of my issues I feel is that I don't think that I've ever developed a discernible, unique style, which is what I was going to talk about in the writing section. But anyway, so that's kind of like a failing of it, but I'm a pretty good draftsman. I don't know what the correct term would be. I can do some good realism and things like that. And I can generally copy pretty well. I know a lot of different techniques and tools, both digital and traditional and whatever, because I went to school for it. You know what I'm saying? I had been doing it all my life. My mother and my father my mother is an artist. She doesn't do it anymore. Maybe I'm taking after her, but she is an artist, and my father was an artist as well as a musician. And they came up with stories together. But anyway, which is all the things about me creatively. But I killed it for myself by trying to make it a career and trying to make money from it. And I realized, thankfully, I never got to the point where I was able to or had to rely on my art for money. I have maintained a day job this whole time. I still have a day job. It's a long-term day job that I've had for, a long time. We'll just say a real long time. Okay. And I'm grateful for it, very much so, that I have this job, especially in today's economy. But trying to make money and take commissions and make a career out of doing art, maybe even trying to work in a studio system, I had a lot of insecurities around my art. Like I never felt like I was good enough to do that in a studio system and whatever, because I obviously in animation, when I was in my early 20s, I wanted to work in an animation studio. I wanted to have my own animation studio. But yeah, so I killed it for myself by trying to make it a career, and the pressure of trying to make money off of art and having taken some commissions. I have done some commissions, a fair number of commissions, but I really hate doing commissions. They take me a long time. There's a lot of pressure. I think that the reason I hate it is because there's so much pressure on myself as a perfectionist, and there's a lot of fear, like maybe I'm not going to be able to do a good enough, maybe they won't like it, they'll feel like they wasted their money. There's just a lot of pressure, and then also just having to make the time to do the commission. It was like pulling teeth because of all of the mental games. I just couldn't really purely enjoy doing the art. And I will say this, I have not done art for myself, just for the enjoyment of doing art. I can't even remember the last time I did. I may have done a little sketch here and there, but every time I sit down to sketch, now there's all this baggage around it, this insecurity around it. And I just don't enjoy it anymore. And that makes me sad. That's a very sad thing. But that's the reason why I now, even though I'm an artist who could technically probably draw the things to a certain extent, some level of the things that I use as the covers for my podcast. And depending on when this episode comes out, I have an episode of the Storymatic where I have a little bit of artwork, character artwork and things in there. And it's definitely not artwork that I did. I definitely went to Midjourney to have the artwork created, because I also know that if I sat up and tried to create art for these podcasts, they would never come out. I would not have put out any podcast to this point, okay, if I was trying to create fresh cover art for each podcast. And so that's a little bit of another sort of weird quandary. And this one kind of came up, especially as I was creating artwork for the podcast that I just mentioned. It's an episode of the Storymatic. And as I was kind of like generating, not even creating, as I was generating art for this, I started to feel like, I could draw these things myself, and I feel kind of weird about it. And I'm cognizant of perhaps how the audience or other people who come across this might see this. And there's a lot of different, feelings around the creative usage of AI, for art, for writing, whatever. There's a lot of opinions around it, and I'm kind of in the middle of those opinions, right? On both sides. So I was feeling weird about it. And that's what made me want to record this podcast. Is like, I don't have an answer for this either, as I'm just bringing up this question and kind of talking your ear off a little bit, kind of using you as my little diary right now. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. Maybe my New Year's resolution will be to just get back into art. And I feel like, here's another thing. I'm going down a little bit of the art tangent. I have a very supportive family, which not a lot of people do. And this is why I have been able to develop in the creative directions that I've developed in, especially my mom. I mentioned obviously earlier that both my mom and my dad are and were creative people. And so my mom was very supportive of me being an artist, going to school for animation, doing art, all that kind of stuff. So whenever I start drawing again, she goes to, and she's not the only one in my family. Some of my aunts too will be like, draw Obama, draw this person, because and even one of my brothers would be like, you should draw this celebrity and all this kind of stuff, because then that'll get eyes on the artwork and things like that. And I've never been interested in drawing well-known. I've drawn maybe 2, and you can see them on my art Instagram, which is like Ash Guyo, at Ash Guyo or Ash Guyo Art or something like that. And I've drawn Nina Simone. I've drawn Chadwick Boseman, and I've drawn one other who, like Marsha Gillis or some actress from like the 70s or something like that. And that's pretty much, and the only reason I drew them is because they were interesting looking to me. I don't draw celebrities just so I can get eyes and be in the algorithm, you know what I'm saying? And so then if ever I pick up the pencil, the metaphorical pencil, you should draw this and that and that and this and that, and then we should, start doing some art again, because then we can start promoting it and all this kind of stuff. Because I had a period of time as I was pursuing being an artist that gets money for doing art. I was doing shows, gallery shows, and not solo or anything like that. I never got to that level, but I would be in group shows and, vanity galleries and things like that. I made a book. I did my only published work to date is basically a coloring book that I did that has a story to it. And I'll probably read it to you here on this podcast at some point. You guys are going to get deep into my inner sanctum. Okay. I'm going to be reading like cringy fan fiction and all this kind of stuff for you. But the monetization of it killed it for me. And the thing about this, though, I think the reason the story is different is because I think I just feel more confident in my story. I've found a niche that I feel is fun, and that if I could get paid for this as well as just being able to do this all the time, I feel like it would be fun. I don't think it would kill story development for me, because I just do it all the time. That's how I put myself to sleep, is telling myself stories. And that's how I've been since I was a kid. So probably storytelling has been with me longer than art, but art was the more tangible one for a long time. So I don't know if there's anything else. Let me look at my little notes real quick. I feel like that's pretty much it. I think that's all I wanted to say about how I'm feeling about AI right now. As I mentioned, I don't have any answers. If you listened to this at all, thank you, because I feel like this is probably a more self-serving podcast. I just wanted to share my ideas somewhere. And like I said, you are my diary. So, and it wasn't a particularly helpful one, I don't think. It's not like how can we be a better storyteller type of thing. It's just a quandary that I feel. I just want to share my feelings about these things with you on this podcast. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me. As I mentioned before, if you have any questions, please feel free to send them my way. I would love to help you. I would love to answer questions. If you would like a story coach, please feel free to check out my packages on creativebff.com. I will probably run some specials at some point. Like maybe I'll do like if, 100 subscriber special discount thing, or maybe 100 subscribers and choose one person to get free story coaching for a period of time or whatever. I don't know. Listen, don't hold me to it. I don't know how to do this YouTuber thing yet. So we're learning together. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me wherever you have joined me, whether it's on YouTube or just on the audio podcast. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Be safe out there. Okay. Tell your stories. I don't have like a tagline or anything to end this out. So just bye, girl. Listen, love you. See you next time.